So as most people can guess, there's been an influx of idiots trying to objectively criticize God of War Ragnarok because they just don't like the game, and most of the criticisms, or at least like the ones I've seen, are either objectively wrong or completely subjective to them. And while it's perfectly fine to not like the game and have your subjective criticism with it, like I have my subjective criticisms with it, but what I hate people do is try to take their subjective criticisms and try to pin it as fact when they will either say some dumbass criticisms again which are objectively wrong or subjective to them, and it shows that they just didn't pay attention during the game and its story moments. And if you're not someone who's hating on the game for no reason, then still stick around, because I'll still be going in depth with some of the things in this game's story and character writing that disprove these brain dead criticisms. And also maybe you'll be able to see some of the things that make this game so great and like some details that you might have missed. But honestly, this is expected with all popular things, because when a wide majority of people praise a game that you don't like, those people are bound to just hate on it, because that's just how the world works. And honestly, I can understand it, because I know how it can feel. For example, I don't really like Elden Ring or any of the Souls games I've played for that matter. And a lot of people praise them while I find them boring as fuck, and they just aren't my type of game. But I'm not going around shitting on people because they like Elden Ring or the game itself, because I don't like it. And I also have only played around 6 to 7 hours of the Souls games that I've played, so I don't see myself in a comfortable position to give criticism on them. But whatever, I'm here to debunk some dumbass criticism, so let's get into it. So let's take this dumbass here. Oh, and if you're one of those soft ass pussies that will get upset because I'm not being respectful towards these people, just fuck off now, because frankly I don't care, and that's just how I am when people piss me off by being so dumb. And I also just have no respect for these people at all, because why should I? And I'm not gonna sit here and try to be all nice about it, because it's too much energy trying to be someone I'm not. And if you want to reciprocate my energy back at me in the comments, feel free to do so. Alright, so let's look at the first thing he says. Awful pacing and storylines. Okay, now if anyone wants to enlighten me on these so-called awful pacing moments, please feel free to do so, because what I think this dumbass criticism stems from, that I've been hearing from a couple people, is just people not wanting to pay attention during the important lines of dialogue and conversations, aka the brain dead idiots who try to criticize a story game for telling its story. Am I saying that pacing in this game is perfect all the time? No, because for example, the one moment in the story I will admit, and I did admit, where he's right is the Angrboda mission with Atreus. But even with this mission taking a bit longer than it should have, it is integral to Atreus' development, because it's also a coming of age story for him, and it also starts to build up his relationship with Angrboda and Angrboda's character herself. And I said I found this mission to be boring at sometimes in my review of the game, but even still, like I said, this mission gives great character development and storytelling, and it also has a great boss fight. But that mission aside, legitimately 90% of the lines of dialogue and story moments in this game contribute to one of the three things, as they should. One, it either contributes to developing a character and or this character's relationship with another character or characters. 2, progressing the plot forward. 3, building up the world, the lore, and the people in the world, so it actually feels like there's people in the world and it's alive, and it doesn't feel like you're just doing all this stuff for no reason. For one example, one of the reasons Odin is such a great villain in this game is because throughout every realm you go to, you feel the impact that Odin's had on it, and how much trouble he's caused the people. I mean, for fuck's sake, the people of Alfheim hate this man so much that they stopped a 1,000-year civil war between their people just to try and help bring the fucking dude down. Like, what? There are very little moments in this game's story where what's happening isn't contributing to one of those three things, and that's how you write a story and character development. And the side missions also contribute to this in a major way, so don't confuse slow moments, in-depth character writing, and the hundreds of heartfelt and passionate conversations had between these characters that have so much depth behind them, for bad pacing. Because if they don't slow it down and do this at times, then one of your other dumbass criticisms would have actually been right, so let's talk about that. The game introduces many characters, but don't really flesh them out fully, and kill them just for shock value. The hell? Now, if you're a person with at least 10 brain cells floating around in your head, you would know that this is the most dumb shit to say, because all the most important characters in this game are fleshed out as much as they needed to be for the story that's being told, and you would know this if you actually paid attention to the fucking game and beat the main story and all the side missions. Freya, Mimir, Atreus, Odin, Thor, Sindri, Brock, these are the main characters, and also most of them have already been given development in the previous game and are all fleshed out even more in this game, and as much as they needed to be, through either the main story moments, side missions that further explain the lore of the world and characters. Like for instance, when exploring and doing side missions or main missions in either like Alfheim or Vanaheim, they're talking about Freyr, who's a side character, and all the stuff that he's done and sacrificed to help the people in these realms. And Freya also talks about him and what he's done and how much he means to her a lot through the game. And now let me talk about the other side characters as well. Angrboda, who's kind of floating on the edge of like a main slash side character, but whatever, she's fleshed out. They give information on her backstory and what she's been through, while also building up her relationship with Atreus. She also has a fear of leaving Ironwood, not wanting Odin to find out of its existence, but slowly throughout the game, because she trusts and likes Atreus, she starts to leave Ironwood and see him. And also contributing to this, she feels like her life is over after like the prophecy thing that she does with Atreus. After this, she doesn't know what to do with her life anymore, because it's not written and she's done what the prophecy has said she would do last. But Atreus helps her get past the prophecy, and she conquers her belief beliefs and fears by the end that she's held for so long, by helping us out at the end of Ragnarok, and then finally living out her life on her own terms and what she wants, and not by living out like prophecy, by going with Atreus at the end of the game. Lady Sif and Thrud also have an arc throughout the story. Sif doesn't want Thrud to be involved in training and violence because she knows that Odin will manipulate and control Thrud, because she's already seen it happen with Thor and what Odin's done to him. And she also won't open up to Thrud about it, which Thrud has a problem with, and it causes her confliction in her life because she feels like she's in constant need to try and prove herself. And she also doesn't want to believe that Odin, her grandfather, is this fucked up guy that Atreus is trying to tell her he is, because she's just a kid and she still wants to hold on to this belief that she can just have this little perfect family. But that slowly crumbles away in moments like when she catches Thor drinking again. And also by the end of the game, Sif finally opens up to Thrud and it's all captivated, and both their arcs and troubles come together in this moment.
You really had me believing you that we didn't have to be enemies.
Dude, you're okay.
My mom was right about you all along. You're a killer just like your father, and you're here to kill us all.
No, just Odin. Sindri, go! She's a friend.
Friends don't bring the end of the world to each other's doorstep, Loki!
You're right. You're right. I made some bad decisions.
You do that a lot. I'm not sure that's a defense.
It's not a defense. I just want to make it right. Is Skilder okay? Have you seen him?
Why wouldn't he be? What are you talking about?
Odin is willing to sacrifice the Midgardians. He put them along the wall to try and deter us, knowing they can't fight. Their deaths are just meant to slow us down.
Why would he do that? And how am I supposed to believe you?
Because he's right. It's who Odin is. It's who he's always been.
Mom, why are you here? What?
He'll sacrifice anyone at a problem in front of him. The Midgardians. Your friend. Our family, any of us. I'd hoped that your father would stand up to him, but now it has to be you.
Mom, what are you saying?
Thrud. I never doubted that you would make the finest Valkyrie these realms have ever seen. But not for him. Do you understand?
But our family.
Without Odin, we can be one again. A real one. What he's doing is wrong.
They finally come together as a family and break free of Odin's hold upon them. And they realize their wrongdoings and start helping the world around them that they know Odin has caused so much pain. This is a very real arc. Instead of being stubborn, they finally stand up to Odin and try to repair the damages he's caused, while also realizing that they also might have been playing a role in this. And instead of being stubborn, they progress as people and become better. And that's all shown in this moment.
Loki!
I'm so glad you're both alive. You have no idea. And I'm sorry, Thor. He tried. You know? I'm sorry I couldn't do more. Nothing will fix what you're feeling. But I hope there's some comfort in knowing Odin's gone.
There absolutely is.
Loki, it was an honor to fight alongside a giant. Know that.
Will you stay here in Midgard?
For a bit, then I've got something I need to find.
I'm working with Hildisvini to get the rest of the Asgardians to Vanaheim to help rebuild.
And I hope it can be a fresh start for them. And you.
Also, while on this, let me address another thing this dickhead says. Thrud and Sif are okay with Thor's death. Just because Odin's dead. So please, tell me in what sentence they said they were okay with the death. They said it brings them comfort. And I can imagine it does because of what I literally just said before I showed that clip of them sitting by the fire. And another thing that's great about this moment is it ties directly into Thor's writing as well. And I talked about it in my review, so I'll play a clip from that. And in the end, Ragnarok battle, when Kratos gets through to him for a second, it makes Thor realize for a moment that maybe he can start clean, is right when Odin kills him right in front of his own daughter, Thrud, who is also, I might add, another great character. But that moment was just so amazing because even though Thor wasn't actually shown that much throughout the story, he was shown at the same time because of Mimir's stories and the conversations had about him through the game. And I also love the fact that the game shows that this parallel between him and Kratos, and the fact that they were both, and I quote what Thor says in the story, destroyers with very fucked up things they've done in their past that Thor thinks defines who they are and that they can't change, but Kratos shows him for a second in those final moments that he can choose to start anew and be better. This whole family finally stands up to Odin, and in that moment when Thor does, he's killed for it before he has the chance to redeem himself and maybe like try and repair some of the damages that he's also contributed to this world. Now Sif and Thrud have the chance to do what Thor couldn't because he died, and that's why his death is so impactful and such a sad and at the same time great moment. But if you actually paid attention to the story, you would already know this. And you know, in all this so-called valid criticism of the game, people don't even raise the most valid criticism of them all. Like, how the fuck does Thor have 3 kids with Lady Sif? Because there's just no fucking way she was able to take all that in the bedroom. Look at the size of this fucking guy. Look at the size of his fucking hands. His finger is the size of her fucking head. Now, if my experience from my own life experience is correct and the standard Newton's secret law of the dick to hand ratio is correct, then this bitch should have been dead a long time ago. Because there's just no way she was able to fit that thing in there. That fucking God Ussie must be some crazy shit. She must have that fucking Mr. Fantastic power in that pussy. Like, I gotta find a way to get to Norse mythology and become Thrud's new stepdad. Because I need that. Like, God damn! Anyways, moving on. Now for some of the other side characters that were introduced. Durlin, Hildisvini, Skjoldir, Heimdall, Ratatoskr. I fucking love Ratatoskr. Surtur. I've also already made a point about them. And the other bits of great character writing in my review, so here you go, once again. And countless other characters, no matter how big or small a role they play in the story, all make an impact on either the world as a whole, Kratos or the other main characters, the adventure, or all of those things just put together. And they have great and unique personalities. And another thing I would like to add about the unique personalities is how they conflict with each prominent character in this game, and how it all comes together and works so well for such beautiful lines of dialogue and story moments. They each had different ways of looking at a situation through their own views and like moral standards, but they build off each other's views and learn from one another's mistakes. And they take those experiences that one of them went through and taking those experiences to think in a way that may better themselves as people or better the person that they're trying to talk to. And I think the best example of this is the conversations that Kratos and Freya have when going through Vanaheim, when Kratos is helping Freya break Odin's curse upon her. All these little characters that weren't fleshed out play their role in the story just as need be, and they don't overstay their welcome with pointless moments that don't contribute to anything. Like, what did you want, an entire side plot on fucking Durlin's life story? You sound like a fucking idiot. He also says they introduced Tyr for a plot twist. Like, yes, but explain how that's a fucking bad thing, because that plot twist was fucking amazing, which also contributed to making a villain being Odin, who's already a 10 out of 10. And another thing I'll bring up is this dumbass take from this other fucking guy.
To introduce way too many plot lines and way too many characters, but it just ended up making you feel like no one really matters and no one's the main character. The Tyr arc was so obvious and such garbage. The 2018 game spent over half the game building up that character and making him seem like he's the Norse version of Kratos. It was just your typical switcheroo, advert your expectations of a character, complete garbage.
Tyr wasn't even fucking Tyr. It was literally fucking Odin impersonating Tyr. That's not introducing a new character. That was literally just Odin acting as someone new. And even though he does show up at the end of the game, so I guess technically it's introducing a new character, when we rescue him, what the fuck did y'all want Tyr to do? Like, just wage a war for no reason? Like, yeah, let's just go back in time and restart Ragnarok so the actual Tyr can lead an army during Ragnarok, like the prophecy said. Because yeah, that would make so much fucking sense. Also, in the first game, he wasn't even described as this fucking crazy god of war. He was described as someone who wanted peace before war. Like, take this example from God of War 2018.
What was Tyr helping Odin meet with the Giant King?
This was when the Long War was young, and victory was still a thing dreamed of, and the Jotnar might have tipped the balance between Aesir and Vanir. Odin had persuaded Tyr that the hammer was merely a deterrent, a means to broker peace from a position of strength. Tyr was hopeful to convince all parties they would prosper best through peace. Knew the giants were deeply concerned about the hammer, a super weapon in hands they did not trust, but they trusted Tyr. Tyr always believed the best in people, and taking Odin at his word in his desire for peace, he brought the Raven King to Jotunheim. From there, things unravelled quickly. The giants anticipated Odin's trickery and exposed his true agenda to spy and steal their secret wisdom. With magics, they expelled Odin from their realm and cursed him never to return. Frustrated, Odin visited his fury upon the giants of Midgard. Thor unleashed Mjolnir's might upon any giant he could find. None could stand against the tide of slaughter that followed. And at last, it seems, with Tyr's aid, they retreated. With power comes a big choice, lad. You can either serve yourself, or put your godhood in the service of others, like Tyr did.
People really loved him, huh?
Aye, the god of war. but one who fought for peace.
The only thing that showed that he was this crazy god and that he was like the Kratos of Norse mythology, and it didn't even really show that he was like that, it just showed that he had the capabilities to be a beast and he could be like that when needed be if he wanted to. The only thing that shows that was the prophecy that said he would lead the war against Odin. Like, people saying dumb shit like this just makes me appreciate the people who write good stories, because there's always the possibility that we could have dickheads like this writing our stories. The main reason I bring up this dickhead's criticism is because according to him, these are all valid criticisms that have been raised by many people, which I pray is not the case, because I really hope the many people are not this fucking dumb and incapable of understanding the story and character writing of this game. I mean, I think it's understandable if you haven't passed the 8th grade yet, but if not, please just stop talking. But I have also heard some other try and say like some of the same bullshit, like not all of the same shit, but some of the stuff that he said that actually, like, I've heard other people say just shows that this guy can't fucking think for himself, because if he actually paid attention, he would know these people are wrong, and now he just sounds like a fucking dickhead like all the other people saying this shit. But let me keep going, because I'm petty, and I like proving dumb people wrong. Because in my time of being a dickhead towards these people, I'm also trying to enlighten these people at the same time, to stop being so fucking dumb. Because people not having common sense and an easy understanding of something that is so easy to understand is my biggest fucking pet peeve. So, continuing. He says the game has unanswered questions. Where? Please feel free to enlighten me, and I mean that genuinely, so I can either answer the question for you, because you and people like you are clearly incapable of paying attention, or maybe I'm the one that's wrong here, and there were unanswered questions that I just didn't pick up on, but I am 90% positive there aren't, or otherwise I wouldn't have been so satisfied with this game's ending. And I think I've made it pretty clear I know how to fucking pay attention to a story. He also says the boss fights at the end with Thor and Odin were underwhelming. And that's not objective or a valid criticism at all, because that is completely subjective. Because for me, the boss fights were fucking amazing, because not only were they challenging and mechanically engaging, but they were also visually stunning and cinematic, and also held so much impact behind them. And that's like literally the everything that makes a boss fight great. And the last thing I'm gonna mention, because now I think I'm done responding to this brain dead monkey. Actually, wait, maybe a monkey is giving him too much credit, because they're actually somewhat smart. Anyways, the last thing I'm gonna mention, because I don't feel like writing anymore, is the fact that he says the deaths are used for shock value. And sure, I guess, but it's not like the deaths happen in this game are out of character or don't make sense as to why they happen. So no, it's not just shock value. Using your logic, you could say shock value is for any death and anything ever. So let's look at the most important deaths that happen and why/how they happen. Number 1, Freyr. He is described and written as a selfless person who has put others before himself, and he tries his best to help people. How does Freyr die? By literally putting himself before others and sacrificing himself to save people. That's his writing, and death come full circle, and that is what you call fantastic writing. But if you want to boil that down to shock value, sure bud, you do you. Number 2, Thor's death. How does Thor die? At the hands of Odin. Why does Odin kill him? Well, because he's an asshole. No. But seriously, Odin is written and talked about as either killing or punishing anyone who defies him. Examples. That's why the dwarves are so scared of him. He literally locked Mimir inside a tree for years. He waged war and killed all the giants, or had all the giants killed, because they wouldn't listen to him. He had Thor attack Kratos because Kratos wouldn't accept the terms of like what he was trying to say at the beginning of the game. And the last example I'll use is the third death, Brock's death. Brock dies by, again, him defying and going against Odin. And also his death makes a part of his character come full circle, because everyone thinks he's just some dumb guy who just makes weapons. And in his final moments, he was the only one smart enough to notice that something was off about Tyr, and he died for it. Oh my fucking god. It's like, I feel like this shit is so fucking simple to understand. It's just like, oh my god. But alright, now I'm done. Thank you all a lot for watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you. And yeah, feel free to subscribe if you want to, because that would really help me out a lot. And yeah, love you all.